Okay, so hello friends. In the last tutorial, we studied about the HTML form handling using Spring MVC app architecture. So today we will be continuing with that application and see how it is being executed. So what files we modified were web.xml remains the same. Spring dispatcher servlet.xml also remains the same. There is no modification required in it. We created a new controller class that is under the package com.tel, form. We created a training form application where the user when will hit the till now what we have done is that user is say what my requirement was user is hitting this URL, then it should get a view where it will be submitting all its details like student name, student date of birth, address, mobile number, and after that user clicks on submit button, another URL is being created that is submit form.html. So we created another request handler for that is this one, and this will be handling the submit success JSP page. That is when user hits it, we get a success JSP. Here we'll be displaying that you have successfully submitted the details, and these are the below details. We also studied about the data binding, that we want the data binding to happen automatically, but in the previous tutorial we make use of request param annotation to bind that data. What we did was we just fetch the fields which user has entered, that is student name. Say in the training form JSP I'm having student name, so I get that in my request para and stored it in the local variable name. After that I am just binding this to the my bean class, that is student class, and here we are having its member variable the same name. It is case sensitive, take care of this point, with the same name, and then we are just setting this object. And after that what we did, we added this object to my model and view class, and finally this object is being accessed in my JSP page. So here the data binding is not done automatically, here it is done using the request param annotation. In the future further tutorials we'll be seeing how it is being done automatically. Okay, so let's do the execution till this part first. Go to your Spring MVC project, run on server. Since you have made changes to your file, so again you have to restart the server. Now what my URL will be, it is training form.html. So what it should show when you're hitting this URL, you're getting the training form. Why? Let's see how it works. It comes over here, here we have said that now the package which needs to be scanned is com.tel, form. So it goes over there, checks for the classes marked with controller. It found this class, it gets the incoming URL training form. Here it needs to go to training form.jsp. It goes over here. Here first it displays the heading, and then we are having a HTML form which is showing student name, hobby, mobile, and date of birth. Input type text, so we are getting the text boxes along with it. And then finally we have it the submit button where we need to submit it. Now what happen will be, the user will be entering all the data and clicking on this button. When user will click on this button, what action it needs to do is it need to map it to this particular URL. Means another URL is created with http://8080 localhost Spring MVC project 1 and submit form.html, and the method will be post. So in the URL header the data will not go. So till that point it's clear. Now let's see what happens. So till now my URL is this. Let's enter the data. Amit, say music Mobile, you can enter anything. Let's enter the date of birth. It's of date type. It takes this format only because this is the default format which HTML accepts. We can change the format, but for that we have to write the simple date format and modify the format of my date. We'll be doing it in the next tutorial. Here now just click on submit the form. It has created the another URL which is this submit form.html. Now the submit form.html URL will go over this request handler which we have written. That is why now here when it comes, what we want that whatever the user has entered in the previous URL, all these details should be binded to my student object. So here we take these values, bind it to the student object, student.set, student name, mobile, and this, and finally adding this object. And this object again needs to be displayed in my view name, which is success.jsp. So here we go, and with that object name dot the property name you have to write, and finally details are this. So that is why we are able to see the data. Amit number, and since we added the format as 11th March 1990, so it is showing 11th March 1990, but here we are not getting the hobby field. Why so? Because let's see what we have done. We are getting the hobby field over here, mapping to the local variable, yes, but we are not setting it in my main method. So here I need to bind it because data binding is not done automatically over here. So set student hobby, just save it and run it again. Now enter the URL. We'll be able to get the hobby field as well, because earlier we were not binding it using the request mapping annotation. So we are able to get the hobby field. So that is the problem. Clear with that? So we need to bind it each and every time whichever field we want the view to display. Let's see if the date of birth is in some other format. Is it able to show or not? Say I'm entering this format. No, it cannot process this request due to something that is perceived to the client error. This is just because of the syntax error. The HTML will by default accept the format as DDMMYYYYY. If you want another format, we can use a simple date format and modify it. So the default format will be this only, else it will show an error. Also, if I use some, it's showing an error. Why? Because it is accepting a date data type now, and what we are entering is string. So that is why it is showing an error. So these are all the errors related to my HTML form. These can also be handled using the Spring MVC architecture. Further, we'll be handling these errors also, and instead of showing this 404 error page to the user, what we will be showing is the same admission form saying the user that you have entered the incorrect values, please enter the correct value and then submit the form. So those error handling can also be done. For the time being, I'll just use this format and submit it. Okay, so this is the execution. Now let's come to the another point which about the request param annotation. So this will be studying in the next tutorial.